Welcome to Late Night Horror Stories and True Crime. Tonight, we travel across the United States to uncover places where the dead refuse to rest. Homes built on suffering, prisons filled with screams, and halls echoing with footsteps from another time. These are the top 10 most haunted locations in the U.S.A. Turn off the lights, settle in, and listen closely. Because in these places, even the silence is haunted. Number 10. The Waverly House, San Diego, California. San Diego may be known for sunshine and beaches, but just off the cobblestone paths of Old Town sits a house where the light does not reach. Built in 1857 by Thomas Waverly, the Waverly House was meant to be a dream home. But from the moment its foundation touched earth, it was doomed. You see, the house was constructed atop the site of public executions, most infamously the hanging of Yankee Jim Robinson, a convicted thief who was too tall for the gallows. He strangled slowly, his boots dragging against the dirt. Waverly himself attended that hanging and still chose to build there. Some say he was arrogant, others say he didn't believe in ghosts. But soon, the family began to unravel. Tragedy struck in waves. Infant deaths, suicides, illness, madness. Waverly's daughter Violet took her own life in the home after a failed marriage, shooting herself in the chest. She left a note, soaked in grief and regret. Visitors today speak of heavy boots echoing up and down the wooden staircase. Always slow, always deliberate. A young girl in 19th century clothing has been spotted in the dining room, sometimes skipping, sometimes sobbing. There are cold spots in the nursery, perfume smells where no one stands, and a piano that plays itself at night. One couple fainted after seeing a translucent man standing in the master bedroom, watching them with hollow eyes. They didn't stay the night. Even park rangers and docents report disembodied laughter, locked doors, and unexplainable malfunctions with electronics. One woman said she felt a cold hand grip her shoulder, only to turn and find nothing behind her but a mirror. The house is no longer a home. It is a place where the past breathes and the walls remember. Whether it's Yankee Jim, Violet Waverly, or something deeper, one thing is certain: the Waverly House does not sleep. Number 9. The Villisca Axe Murder House, Villisca, Iowa. In the quiet town of Villisca, Iowa, sits a small white house that could easily be mistaken for a humble farmhouse. Unassuming, modest, the kind of place where a family might share dinners and bedtime stories. But in the summer of 1912, it became the site of one of the most brutal and perplexing mass murders in American history. On the night of June 9th, someone slipped into the home of Josiah and Sarah Moore. Armed with an axe, the killer bludgeoned Josiah first, his face so disfigured it was barely recognizable. One by one, the murderer moved through the house, killing Sarah and their 4 children, Herman, Catherine, Boyd, and Paul, as well as 2 visiting girls, Lena and Ina Stillinger, who had come for a sleepover. 8 lives ended with chilling precision. The killer stayed in the house for hours afterward, covering mirrors with cloth, draping a scarf over the mother's face, and even making a plate of food that was left untouched. The murders were never solved. No fingerprints, no footprints, no screams. Just blood and silence. Some believe it was a drifter. Others say it was a local. But the only thing everyone agrees on is that something evil was left behind. Visitors report children's voices in the night. Flashlights die without warning. Balls roll across the floor on their own. One paranormal investigator was scratched on the back, moments after provoking the air in the attic. That same attic, small, suffocating, is believed to be where the killer waited patiently as the family went about their night. Some have claimed to hear breathing up there, even when the room is empty. The bedroom where the two Stillinger girls slept is said to be the most active. Lena, the older of the two, was found in an unnatural position, possibly awake during the attack. Guests have reported bedsheets lifting, as if an unseen hand is recreating the moment. A group of thrill-seekers once tried to spend the night, only to flee screaming after seeing a figure standing at the foot of the bed. Today, the house is preserved exactly as it was. No electricity, no plumbing, just four walls and the weight of horror soaked into the floorboards. Investigators, skeptics, and tourists alike have walked in expecting a story, and many leave shaken, convinced that the story is still happening. Number 8. The Myrtles Plantation, St. Francisville, Louisiana. Southern elegance hides many things: decay, secrets, and ghosts. In St. Francisville, Louisiana, among the live oaks and heavy moss, stands the Myrtles Plantation, a grand antebellum home draped in beauty and bathed in death. Legend claims that at least 10 murders occurred within these walls, though only one is officially documented. But even the records can't contain what stirs there. The most infamous ghost is Chloe, a house slave, punished for eavesdropping on her master, Judge Clark Woodruff. As the story goes, her ear was severed, and she was forced to wear a green turban to hide the wound. In revenge, she baked a cake laced with oleander, intending only to sicken the family. But the poison killed the judge's wife and 2 daughters. Chloe was hanged by fellow slaves and her body thrown into the Mississippi River. Whether the tale is folklore or fact doesn't seem to matter, because something resembling Chloe has been seen. A woman in a green turban appears in windows, photobombs tourists, and walks the veranda at night. But Chloe is far from alone. The grand mirror in the main hallway refuses to stay clean. Smudges and handprints return, even after scrubbing. Some say the mirror trapped the souls of Sarah Woodruff and her children, who never received a proper funeral. Their pale faces are seen staring from behind the glass, mouths open in silent screams. The ghost of a Confederate soldier has been seen limping through the entryway, collapsing near the stairs before fading into the floor. And children, laughing one moment, screaming the next, can be heard on the second floor. Furniture is rearranged when no one is watching. Chandeliers sway without a breeze. Doors lock themselves from the inside. One guest described being pinned to her bed by an invisible force, unable to scream. Another reported waking to the sensation of small hands tugging on her feet, as if a child wanted to play in the middle of the night. A psychic once visited and left trembling, saying, "There are too many voices here, too many who never moved on." The Myrtles Plantation markets itself as one of the most haunted homes in America, and it may be the only tourist attraction where guests check out with more than just memories. They leave with whispers in their ears and shadows trailing behind them. Number 7. Eastern State Penitentiary, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Towering stone walls, narrow cells, endless corridors soaked in silence and despair. This was Eastern State Penitentiary, once the most advanced prison in the world. Built in 1829 in Philadelphia, it was the first to implement true solitary confinement. Inmates were locked alone day and night with only a Bible and their thoughts. No contact, no sound, just a slit in the wall for food and a single skylight above, meant to represent the eye of God. But what was supposed to be reform quickly decayed into something far worse. Prisoners went mad. Some tore their hair out. Others gouged out their eyes, whispering to themselves, pacing in circles until their feet bled. Guards reported hearing sobs from cells that were supposed to be empty. By the early 1900s, the system had collapsed under its own weight. Overcrowding and brutality turned Eastern State into a hellhole. Inmates were chained to walls, doused in cold water during winter, and even strapped into the mad chair, where circulation was cut off for days. Some never walked again. Today the prison is abandoned, crumbling, but alive with something unseen. Ghost hunters and skeptics alike have come through its gates and left disturbed. Visitors report disembodied screams echoing through cell block 12, doors slamming behind them, and shadow figures pacing back and forth inside the old punishment wing. There's a story of a locksmith who was hired to restore the metalwork in cell block 4. When he opened a rusted lock that hadn't turned in decades, something unseen passed through him. He collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably, whispering words in languages he didn't know. He quit the next day. Guards who once worked night shifts tell of footsteps echoing behind them, only to turn around to empty corridors. Some have felt the sudden weight of hands on their shoulders. Others say they've heard cell doors slide open and breathe close to their ears. One woman fainted in the old infirmary after seeing a patient lying on a bed that hadn't existed in 50 years. Cell block 15, the solitary confinement wing, is so charged with energy that even seasoned investigators refuse to stay inside for more than a few minutes. Temperature drops, malfunctioning equipment, and overwhelming dread are common. Eastern State Penitentiary no longer houses the guilty, only the tormented. The prison may have closed in 1971, but the sounds, the screams, and the souls never left. They're waiting, still locked behind those thick stone walls, listening for footsteps. Yours. Number 6. The Crescent Hotel, Eureka Springs, Arkansas. Nestled high in the Ozark Mountains, the Crescent Hotel looks like a castle from another time. Built in 1886 as a luxurious resort for the elite, it attracted wealthy guests from across the country. But the mountain air couldn't keep out what was to come. Scandal, death, and a man who would turn the hotel into a house of horrors. In 1937, the property was bought by Norman G. Baker, a former vaudeville performer turned self-proclaimed doctor. Baker had no medical degree, no license, but he claimed to have a cure for cancer, a secret tonic, and a few natural remedies. Desperate patients arrived by the dozens, unaware that no one ever left. Cured, only sicker, weaker, or dead. Behind the hotel's elegant facade, Baker conducted brutal experiments. He drained tumors without anesthesia, injected his concoctions directly into the spine, and kept the bodies hidden in the basement morgue. Some say he spoke to the dead. Others say he created them. Today, the Crescent Hotel markets itself proudly as America's most haunted hotel, and with good reason. Guests staying in room 218 have reported screams in the night, hands pulling at the bedsheets, and a man's face appearing in the mirror. That room is believed to be haunted by Michael, a stonemason who fell to his death during construction and landed where the room now sits. In the lobby, a well-dressed man in a lavender suit, matching Baker's favorite outfit, has been seen walking through solid walls. In the kitchen, pots and pans crash to the floor when no one's around. And in the former morgue, where Baker stored cadavers and specimens, the temperature drops without warning. Shadows move independently of light, and whispers echo when you're alone. One guest claimed she was followed through the hallway by a woman in a nurse's uniform, only to watch the woman vanish through a locked door. A psychic once visited and described the energy of the place as a spiritual waiting room, not for peace, but for revenge. Employees tell stories of working alone and feeling eyes on them. Some have quit after seeing a little girl in a Victorian dress appear by the grand staircase, staring with empty eyes before fading away. The Crescent is still open for business. You can book a room, take the ghost tour, even stay in the morgue suite if you dare. But fair warning, the night staff keep the lights on and always check the mirrors twice. Number 5. The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, Western West Virginia. In the heart of West Virginia stands a massive Gothic structure, its stone facade cracked with age, its windows like staring eyes. This is the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, a place built with good intentions and consumed by madness. Construction began in 1858, with the design rooted in a theory that architecture, light, and fresh air could soothe the mentally ill. Patients were to be treated with kindness. But when the asylum opened in 1864, the Civil War delayed supplies, staff, and funding. What was meant for 250 patients quickly ballooned to over 2,000. And with the crowding came chaos. Patients were chained to the floor. Some were locked in cages. Electroshock therapy, insulin-induced comas, and ice baths became standard treatments. Lobotomies were performed with crude tools, often leaving patients mute, paralyzed, or dead. The asylum didn't heal, it devoured. Now abandoned, the building stretches across 26 acres. Inside, the paint peels, the ceilings sag, and the spirits whisper. One of the most notorious ghosts is Lily, a young girl believed to have been born in the asylum to a patient. She died within its walls, no one knows how. Visitors often bring her toys. A ball in her old room rolls across the floor on its own. Laughter, soft, distant, echoes down the halls. Ghost hunters have recorded voices saying, "Come play," followed by the slam of a door. Shadow figures are seen in the main corridor, tall and fast, darting from one side to the other. Cold spots freeze the air in moments. In the lobotomy wing, a male spirit is known to lash out. One investigator reported being shoved so hard, she fell down the stairs. Another fled after hearing voices chanting in Latin. The most active areas include the women's ward, where sobbing can be heard through rusted doors, and the seclusion cells, dark, suffocating, and angry. Flashlights flicker, batteries drain, and even skeptics have left shaking. The asylum closed its doors in 1994, but the energy, violent, fractured, confused, never left. Some believe the suffering trapped spirits within its walls. Others think something darker has taken root, something that feeds on fear. Today, the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum offers ghost tours, overnight investigations, and warnings. Do not provoke what you cannot see. You might hear a whisper. You might feel a tug. Or you might find yourself staring into a cell and realizing you're not alone. Number 4. The Stanley Hotel, Estes Park, Colorado. Perched high in the Colorado Rockies, the Stanley Hotel looks like a dream, its white columns and red roof beam under the mountain sun. But at night, the dream turns. Built in 1909 by inventor Freeland Oscar Stanley, of Stanley steamer fame, the hotel was meant to be a sanctuary for the rich and weary. But even in its earliest years, strange things stirred in its 140 rooms. Guests reported hearing piano music coming from the empty ballroom. Lights flickered in hallways. Laughter echoed where no guests were staying. The staff whispered about shadows that didn't belong to anyone living. Then came Stephen King. In 1974, King and his wife stayed at the hotel during the off-season. They were the only guests. That night, King dreamed of his son running through the hallways screaming, being chased by a fire hose. He woke drenched in sweat, and by morning the outline of The Shining was born. What many don't know is that room 217, where he slept, is haunted in its own right. Decades earlier, a housekeeper named Elizabeth Wilson was caught in a gas explosion in room 217. She survived barely and returned to work. But long after her death, guests claim she still visits the room. Unmarried couples report their belongings being packed and moved by invisible hands. Lights turn on and off. Some wake to find their bed tucked more tightly than they remember, like a maid has come and gone in the night. But 217 isn't alone. Children's laughter is heard on the 4th floor, often near room 428, where guests see a cowboy leaning in doorways, tipping his hat, then vanishing. The grand staircase, elegant and winding, is a magnet for apparitions. Security footage has captured misty figures ascending the steps at 3 a.m. when the halls are silent. In the music room, the keys of the grand piano depress as if being played, but no sound comes out. The staff has grown used to it. Guests, not so much. The Stanley doesn't hide its ghosts, it embraces them. Ghost tours, seances, even wedding packages that promise spirited guests. But don't be fooled by the polished wood and crisp linens. Beneath it all is something colder, older. A presence that isn't malevolent, just aware. And when the wind howls down from the mountains and the walls creak with age, you'll understand what Stephen King felt in that dark hallway, that here you are never truly alone. Number 3. The Winchester Mystery House, San Jose, California. There's a mansion in San Jose where logic goes to die. Stairways rise into ceilings, doors open into walls. Windows overlook nothing. Built with endless corridors and rooms that defy design, it is a puzzle of madness and grief. This is the Winchester Mystery House, built by a woman haunted by guilt and perhaps something more. Sarah Winchester was the widow of William Wirt Winchester, heir to the Winchester rifle fortune. After his death, Sarah inherited more than just wealth. She inherited blood. Thousands had died by Winchester rifles, and legend says a medium told her that the spirits of those slain were seeking vengeance. To keep them at bay, she was instructed to build and never stop. So she bought an unfinished farmhouse in 1884 and began construction that would last 38 years, day and night, without pause. The result is a 160-room labyrinth designed not to shelter the living, but to confuse the dead. Trapdoors, upside-down pillars, and staircases with 13 steps are everywhere. Some doors open to a 2-story drop, others lead to brick walls. It's not a home. It's a riddle carved from fear. Paranormal activity in the Winchester house isn't just folklore. It's persistent. Staff and guests report footsteps echoing in the hallways. Doorknobs rattle on their own. Cold spots appear suddenly, accompanied by the scent of old perfume or cigar smoke. One room is so active it's referred to as the seance room, where Sarah was said to speak with the spirits nightly, asking for guidance on what to build next. The 3rd floor is infamous. A construction worker once claimed he saw a man in coveralls vanish into a wall. Another saw a shadow at the end of the corridor and heard hammering, long after the tools were gone. Some believe the spirits of the workers themselves haunt the house. Carpenters, stonemasons, laborers, trapped in an endless shift. One tour guide fainted while giving a lecture in the Daisy bedroom, where Sarah herself was briefly trapped during the 1906 earthquake. Witnesses say her face went pale and her eyes locked onto the far wall, as if someone was staring back. Despite its strange layout and tragic origins, the house stands firm, its walls groaning with secrets. It's open to the public now, but make no mistake, some areas are still closed off, not for safety, but for silence. Because what lives inside the Winchester Mystery House isn't finished. And if you stay long enough, you might hear the hammer too. Number 2. Waverly Hills Sanatorium, Louisville, Kentucky. On a misty hill outside Louisville stands a monolith of suffering, its windows shattered, its halls hollow. This is Waverly Hills Sanatorium, a place built for healing but remembered only for death. It was opened in 1910 as a response to the tuberculosis outbreak. The White Plague, they called it. In the early days, there was no cure. Patients were given rest, fresh air, and hope, but mostly they died. At the height of the epidemic, over 400 people lived and died within its walls at a time. Treatments were brutal. Lungs were exposed to sunlight through surgical windows cut into the chest. Ribs were removed to allow diseased lungs to expand. One of the most terrifying tools was the iron lung, a mechanical coffin that breathed for the dying. And when death came, and it came often, the bodies were wheeled through the body chute, a 500-foot tunnel beneath the building used to discreetly dispose of corpses so the living wouldn't see. But the dead did not go quietly. Today, Waverly Hills is a shell of concrete and ghosts. Visitors report disembodied voices whispering their names. Shadows dart across doorways. Room 502, the old nurses' station, is considered the epicenter of the haunting. According to legend, a nurse was found hanging by her neck there, pregnant, unmarried, disgraced. Some say she killed herself. Others whisper darker theories. Guests who enter the room report nausea, pressure in their chest, and the feeling of someone watching from the corner. Apparitions are frequent. A little boy named Timmy is said to play with a leather ball in the hallway. Guests have tossed the ball down the corridor, only to watch it roll back, as if thrown by unseen hands. Another spirit, known simply as the Creeper, crawls along walls and ceilings, a dark, formless shadow with glowing eyes. It doesn't speak. It just watches and waits. Photographs have captured figures standing in windows of the old solarium. A woman in white has been seen limping down the hall with bloody wrists. One investigator fled after hearing what sounded like dozens of people coughing violently in the darkness, though the building was empty. Waverly Hills was closed in 1961, but is anything but abandoned. It draws the curious, the brave, and the foolish. Ghost tours are available year-round, though many don't finish them. Some faint, some run, and some swear they brought something home with them. What remains in Waverly Hills is not just memory. It is energy, dark, lingering, and alive. Number 1. The LaLaurie Mansion, New Orleans, Louisiana. In the French Quarter of New Orleans, among the jazz clubs, balconies, and warm flicker of gas lamps, sits a house so cursed that locals cross the street to avoid its shadow. The LaLaurie Mansion, with its stately facade and ironwork balconies, is a jewel of 19th century architecture and a mausoleum of horror. It belonged to Madame Delphine LaLaurie, a wealthy socialite and member of high society. By day, she hosted elegant parties and moved in powerful circles. But behind the doors of 1140 Royal Street, she presided over one of the darkest chapters in American history. On April 10, 1834, a fire broke out in the mansion. As panicked onlookers rushed to help, they discovered the source of the blaze, set intentionally by a chained cook in the kitchen, desperate to escape. What rescuers found in the attic made hardened men weep and run. There, shackled to walls, Locked in cages and mutilated beyond comprehension were her slaves, dozens of them. Tongues had been removed, limbs broken and reset at grotesque angles. One woman's skin had been peeled back like an onion. Others were strapped to operating tables, still alive, their organs exposed. It was a torture chamber, a human laboratory. Lalaurie fled to France before justice could be served, but what she left behind never left at all. The house sat vacant for decades, feared by even the most skeptical. People who entered reported cries in the night, the sound of dragging chains, and screams that rose from the floorboards. Some say they saw blood leaking from the walls. Others saw faces in the mirrors, distorted, twisted, reaching out. In the late 1800s, the mansion was turned into an apartment building. Tenants reported apparitions, sudden cold spots, and being grabbed by invisible hands. One man was found dead in his room, beaten as if by many fists. His last words, "They'll never leave me alone." A young girl once fell to her death from a third-story window. She said something had pushed her. Witnesses later claimed they saw a woman in 1800s dress staring from the window hours after her body was removed. Even today, with the mansion privately owned and closed to the public, tourists gather outside, drawn by the chill in the air. Paranormal investigators claim the building pulses with energy, despair, rage, and pain. The Lalaurie mansion isn't just haunted, it is poisoned, a wound in the heart of New Orleans. And the house remembers every scream, every act, every soul. We've walked the halls of pain, peered into mirrors that reflect more than just our faces, and heard the echoes of crimes long buried. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, these stories linger, etched in wood, stone, and memory. Thank you for joining us here on Late Night Horror. Stories and true crime. Subscribe for more haunted tales and true terror pulled straight from the shadows. Until next time, sleep with one eye open.